You're about to see breaking news that will shock you. In the span of a few hours, we've got three high-stakes storylines colliding. A potential breakthrough on an Israel-Hamas ceasefire and hostage release, a grinding U.S. government shutdown, edging toward a military pay cliff, and National Guard deployments stirring a fierce political fight at home. I'll connect the dots and show you why all three could pivot the next week of markets, geopolitics, and public sentiment. Let's take a look at the report from the network.
President Trump says that both Israel and Hamas have agreed to the first phase of a ceasefire and hostage release deal. He made that announcement yesterday evening in a post on social media. In it, he says all remaining hostages held by Hamas will be released. He also says Israel will pull its troops back behind an agreed-upon line. Israel's ambassador to the United States said last night that a 72-hour clock to release the living hostages will begin once the Israeli cabinet meets later this morning to approve the deal. On social media, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the news a, quote, diplomatic success and a national and moral victory for the state of Israel. Last night on Fox News, President Trump offered more details on this deal.
The big thing is hostages are going to be released. It's probably our time would be probably Monday, and you know they're a terrible situation. They're deep in the earth, and they're being gotten, and a lot of things are happening right now as we speak. So much is happening to get the hostages freed, and we think they'll all be coming back on Monday. I'm very confident there'll be peace in the Middle East. I mean, the words peace in the Middle East is something people have been striving for hundreds of years, for centuries, for many centuries.
So there are a few diplomatic meetings we got to keep track of today, because today in Paris, European, Arab, and other states will meet to discuss Gaza's post-war transition. Reuters reports Secretary of State Marco Rubio will not attend, but the U.S. is going to have representation there. That meeting will be held in parallel with the ongoing indirect talks between Israel and Hamas. Those are happening in Egypt. I want to bring in MSNBC White House correspondent Akayla Gardner. Akayla, we've got about a zillion stories for you this morning, but I think that this one is one that we've been driving towards for weeks, if not days, once it became clear that there was some kind of a peace plan on the table. Now we see Israel and Hamas have agreed, at least to the first phase of it, and the president is now talking about potentially going to the region. Talk about how all of this played out yesterday in a pretty interesting White House meeting.
Yeah, it was a fascinating meeting, and especially one that I think we're going to be looking back on for years, especially if this plan does lead to an end to the war, and there's many steps that are still to come. But you saw Secretary of State Marco Rubio pass this note to the president, and he said that a deal was very close. We now know, of course, that this deal is supposed to go forward. But as I mentioned, there's a lot of steps that still need to happen. The president says he's possibly going to Israel and Egypt in a trip that could happen just days from now. The White House says he's considering going on Friday. He also left the door open to going on Saturday or Sunday. But some of the still sticking points that we're seeing in this deal is this disarmament of Hamas, which is something that Hamas has rejected for a long time. There's also this board of peace that the president proposed in his plan that would be led by him. And Hamas has been very opposed to any foreign leadership of Gaza, of the Palestinian state. And there's also the question of statehood, which is still very much an open question. We really don't know where the administration still stands on it, and there's certainly a lot of thoughts in Arab nations and Muslim nations that they want to see the Palestinian Authority lead Gaza.
Yeah, and especially when you look at what's happening in Paris, the fact that the French have said that they would recognize a Palestinian state, the fact that they are going to be the ones sort of hosting that delegation as they plan for Gaza's post-war future, I think that is instructive and interesting. We're going to see what we see on this. I always appreciate the still photographers on all of our beats in Washington. They're so talented and amazing, but the fact that they were able to get a picture of the note that Rubio passed to Trump, it says, we're close to a deal. I need you to approve a Truth Social post so that you can be the first one to announce it. I think that was pretty instructive. One of several stories that we're following this morning, because
Here's what matters and why. If the ceasefire framework and hostage releases move forward on the timeline discussed, that's not just diplomacy. It's a test of enforcement mechanics, sequencing, verification, and who guarantees compliance. Watch for two signals: whether Israel's war cabinet locks in a formal timetable, and whether third-party guarantors, regional or great power, step in to monitor pullbacks and transfers. If those pieces snap into place, markets typically price a de-risking bounce across energy and defense names. If they wobble, we see the opposite: On the U.S. side, Shutdown Day 9 isn't about talking points. It's about cash flow pain and leverage. The moment military pay is threatened, you often get a legislative escape hatch or a narrowly tailored fix. The political cost curve steepens after that date. Expect sudden deal chatter or targeted carve-outs, even if the broader impasse holds. Finally, National Guard deployments around immigration enforcement imagery shift the optics from policy to public order. That can galvanize bases, but it also raises civil-military normalization concerns in big cities. If legal challenges accelerate, watch for court-ordered limits that force the administration to recalibrate posture without conceding the narrative. The clip you just saw is used exclusively for commentary, analysis, and educational discussion. We transform the material with original insights and do not substitute for the original program.
And how has that landed at the White House? That Marjorie Taylor Greene is now out here kind of giving Democrats some political wins by saying they have a point. We actually really do have to do something on the ACA. This is a staunch ally of President Trump.
Well, what she has said on this point is she is someone who's always been willing to disagree with the president, even though she is this big ally. But I think the question with the shutdown that continues to come up for me, and I asked the president this weekend, would you support extending ACA subsidies? That's something seems very simple that Democrats would agree to. And he continues to say that he wants to fix Obamacare, that he wants to make it better. He still calls it a, quote, disaster. He's very much railing against it. But Republicans seem to be open to having this conversation about health care. But for them, they said it's only going to happen after they patched the CR. But that does not bring us to a point of negotiations. That does not bring any clear point for Americans for this standoff to end. But they are still continuing to try to force Democrats' hands, whether that means pulling funding. They're trying to just create this pain for Democrats as a way to convince them. But Democrats have said the politics for them is really no longer there. They say you're going to do cuts, you're going to do DOGE cuts anyways. What real incentive is there for them to continue to have these conversations? Because for them, they say, you guys are going to do the same things anyways, so why should we come to the
I do also think that
This is TheCryptagon. Stay sharp, stay informed.